Hello and welcome to the Pulse for Good channel. Today we're going to be talking about how listening can help improve things in your workplace. Now this may seem very obvious, but there's some interesting aspects to listening that increase some very important things in corporate cultures. And we're going to talk about them today. Have you ever been in a meeting and voiced your opinion and had it just been glossed over? How did that make you feel? Right? Like how does that make you feel when people aren't paying attention to you? If it's anything like me, I feel infuriated. I feel disengaged. I feel I wonder why I'm working there. It's probably the best way to think about it. I think almost everybody has this experience. Right? Everybody has this experience where you want to participate, you have something of value to add, but somebody's not listening. Right now, how can we fix that? How can you make that situation be a little bit better? And part of it is understanding the value of listening. And we've already touched on a few of those things, but I'm going to go through just 3 quick points of what listening does to an organization and to a culture and why it can be beneficial. Number 1, listening increases engagement. One of the most fascinating things in life is listening to leaders complain about people being disengaged at work. They're really concerned about people coming and just getting a paycheck and not really putting their heart and soul into things. But those same leaders are often really bad at listening to the thoughts and the ideas of people that are in the office with them. So much of the time we feel that leadership is providing the ideas and other people will do the execution. When in reality, the best leadership tends to be helping people have a vision of what to be accomplished and then listening thoroughly to the people that they're around to understand how their ideas can mesh into the shared vision of the company or the culture. And so just by listening, whether through its employee engagement surveys, whether that's through one-on-ones, I once worked at a company that had a great example of listening, and in that example was also kind of a bad example. They had 2 members of the executive team that would go around and meet with every employee every year. And they would have a one-on-one interview and conversation. And those members of the executive team were amazing, and it worked out incredibly well to be able to talk to them. It really felt like I was heard when I was there. There was a 3rd member of the executive team that didn't participate. And it was an interesting thing because often he didn't participate because he didn't feel like there would be psychological safety there, which is an important point. But it also came across as though he didn't care about what people's problems were. And so you kind of had the people that cared and the people that didn't. And that wasn't the case, but that was the perception that was shared because of the lack of listening. And so even when you have situations where there may be psychological safety issues, there's still ways to listen and to communicate that you're listening. Anonymous surveys are a good example. The town halls where you can have many people together giving feedback and being able to participate in, hey, this could improve or whatnot. You have there. There's lots of different ways to improve that listening in a cultural way, and this will improve the engagement of employees. The second big thing that it can do is increase commitment to an organization. Now, this is interesting because we talked about how it increases engagement. You want people to be participating, to be engaged, to be sharing ideas, to be doing things. You also don't want people to leave. One of the biggest expenses that comes to an employer is replacing your best employees. When employees leave, it can leave a huge gap in what you're doing. It can slow momentum, and the cost to replace them is tremendous. Right? I think everybody knows that. Anybody that's dealt with recruiting or finding new employees knows how hard it is to replace people. Well, you want people committed to their work. You don't want them just engaged. You want them committed long-term to your company. And the same benefits that come from listening with engagement also come to commitment. When I listen really intently and honestly and completely as an organization, when that really becomes a company culture of listening, you build a far greater chance of people being willing to stay around long term because they feel like they are part of the company. If you think about that for a second, how detrimental it can be to be able to say, I'm putting out the best of me and it's not being even listened to. It's not being rejected, it's just being ignored. Right? What that does is it means I'm not part of this entity. When I'm being listened to, it means I'm part of this entity. I'm absorbed into it. I become, in some sense, one with this company. It becomes a part of me because it's absorbed my ideas, even if it doesn't act on those ideas, or even if those ideas aren't good. That absorption is still an important part to building the commitment. And so listening as a culture improves commitment. All right. Number 3, Listening helps you understand and give people a sense of purpose. Now, this is an interesting thing. Leaders are always trying to set a vision and help people understand the vision. And a lot of times leaders spend a lot of time talking about the vision. They share what's important to them about what they're doing. Now, studies have found, and an interesting one in the University of Minnesota actually talks about this, of listening to people and helping understand how their passions can meld into the purpose of the company is actually a far better approach than you going out and sharing your vision of what the company is. Now, this can be really hard as a leader because in some respects it is your company, but as soon as you've employed people, it's their company as well. And helping them, with that engagement and commitment we talked about earlier, helping them have the shared sense of purpose really is by helping you understand how they see themselves in this larger purpose and how they see the purpose as well. By listening, you can help understand what they view the purpose is versus what you view it is and help bridge those gaps. I've worked at places where if you interviewed people there and asked what the purpose was, you would get a whole lot of different answers. It was probably by team, the answers that you would get. And that could be hard. And there was a constant focus to try and align people on kind of an ambiguous mission that could define everything. It was a stressful and kind of trying time because people wanted that purpose and people wanted to rally around it. The interesting thing is when you sat down and talked to people and you talked to them and understood what they felt like their purpose was, it was a lot easier to unify all of those purposes together instead of trying to match to one leader's purpose or goal. When you listen, when you honestly listen as leaders, as employers, as leaders of culture inside of organizations, and you build that as a foundational part of what you're doing, it changes everything. You get more engaged employees, you get better commitment, people stick around longer, and they buy into the purpose because their purpose becomes your purpose. You're able to unify them together. This has been 3 simple things, maybe not simple, 3 important things that you can gain by making listening a focus in your work organization.